So how long have you been brewing beer? And what got you started?
Well, that second question is a great question. I've been brewing about 10 years, and I started doing it as a means of saving money. And it has turned to a fascinating hobby, a science, if you will.
So how much money does it save you to brew your own beer?
That's another very good question. It depends on each batch. I'm going to just give you some averages. This batch will cost about, oh my goodness, I'd have to get the calculator out. Can we cut that?
Yeah.
My typical batch will run anywhere, depending on exactly what I do, what ingredients I put into it, from $22 to $30 for a batch of about 6 gallons. Oh. So 2.5 cases for $26, whereas commercially it would be that much for 1 case. So it saves me, I pay about a third of paying commercial. Everything I'm going to show you today has different ways of doing it, whether it be any step in this process can be done a different way than I do it. I just have developed these steps because they're simple and they make good beer.
So how important is sanitation in this whole process? Does it have to be super clean or just kind of clean?
No, it kind of clean doesn't work. It has to be sanitary, completely sanitized. Every piece of equipment, before we put it into the fermenter, will be sanitized. Without sanitation, you'll have bacteria in the wort. Unfermented beer is called wort, W-O-R-T. If you have bacteria in the wort, you will not get beer. The bacteria will engage in a microscopic battle with the yeast, and the bacteria generally wins. If the bacteria doesn't win and the yeast somehow prevail, which is uncommon, you'll end up with some sort of taint in the beer. It won't taste right. This isn't really wort, it's just water that has had that grain simmered in it, just to add body to the final product. And we're going to put that on high and really crank up the heat. The top we're going to put in is the Centennial, and I've already guesstimated we're going to do this for 50 minutes.
So these are the bittering hops then?
These are the bittering hops. No, yes, these are the bittering hops. We're leaving them in there a long time. So in 40 minutes we will put the aromatic hops in. Okay, so we're going to put some a pound of dry malt extract into this batch just to add some body to the beer. This is liquid malt extract. A lot of the process has been done, so it's an extract, the cake mix, if you will. Okay, so our water that had the 2-row simmered in is now boiling, so it's time to add the liquid malt extract. So I'm going to take it off of the heat so that the extract, which looks and appears, well, looks and appears, is that redundant? Looks a lot like molasses. It's very thick. And my understanding is this is merely a concentrated wort. So I've turned this heat down so that when I put it back on, it's not, if there's anything still on the bottom, it won't burn. And then next I'm going to put this pound, just to add some body to the final product, a pound of dry malt extract. And the liquid malt extract was 8 pounds. The dry, I'm just going to put a pound of it just to add a little complexity, perhaps a little bit different flavor. And this becomes like little balls. Maybe you can get a picture of this. You can see it balls up, it clumps. So you have to stir constantly to get rid of the clumps. And then once I don't see any clumps anymore, I'll stop stirring. And I change hands because it goes a long time. Okay, so now we're going to add our aromatic hops. And in this case, we're going to use Amarillo hops, which are very pungent, very floral, just scrumptious hop. We're adding 10 ounces, which is a lot of hops for 10 gallons of beer. But we're making 6 gallons of beer. But that's what IPAs are all about, is just having a lot of hops so that the soldiers in India can get their beer fresh.
Now we're gonna cool the wort. It's important because if it gets too hot, the yeast will die, and if it gets too cold, the yeast will become dormant. And it needs to happen quickly and efficiently, so how do you go about doing it?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the ways, the way I actually do it is a cold water bath, and I add ice into the fermenter, so when I pour the wort in there, it will help cool it. So it does need to be done quickly, because if you let this wort stay at a bacteria-happy temperature, they're going to take advantage of that. So we want to bring it down quickly before yeast find out it's here. Before the bacteria find out it's here. So I use a cold water bath. I'm just simply putting it in a sink, cold water, and sometimes I think I should cover it to keep the bacteria from getting in, but that stops the heat from going out. So this is my first step in chilling the wort. Some people will use a copper spirally tubing and put it in there, run cold water through that tubing. That's really the best way, but that's pricey equipment, and I'm cheap. Now I'm going to add ice to my fermenter. It's just my way. Again, there's no right or wrong way, as long as you end up with beer. This is my way of speeding up the chilling process. And I just happen to know from experience that 5 trays of ice is just about right. Now cover that back up, make sure the bacteria fly in there, because we've already sanitized that. So I'm going to drain that and then put more cold water to have more of the heat exchange itself from the wort into the water. Okay, our wort has had a cold water bath, so it's chilled quite a bit. And of course we've put ice in here. So I'm going to just pour this in there. And one of the key things that I do when I do this is when it gets near the bottom, there's going to be some sludge in the bottom that I don't really want in there. No harm done if it goes in there, except that it's just too many solids. And then I immediately start adding cold water until I get to about 25 liters. which are marked on the side of my container. And hopefully we will be somewhere around 68 or 70 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to pitch, this is Y yeast, London Ale yeast. That's Y yeast is the, I want to say, the favorite of home brewers. They do it well. Inside of here was a little packet of liquid yeast, and on the outside of that little packet, still inside this, was a, can you hand me that other one? It's right inside on the door. They start looking like this, and you smack this, and you break the inner pouch, and then the yeast start eating the food that's on the outside of it. So, and then it bloats like this. So I did this 24 hours ago. And I'm going to pitch the yeast. And those are very active yeast. That's why you can use dry yeast, but it's going to take more time to get active. And I always check inside to make sure that this pouch has actually broken. And you can see it has broken. There's nothing in it. So, now we seal it up.
So how do you determine the actual alcohol content of the beer?
That is determined by this tool here. And when you have your wort, you take the specific gravity. The wort gravity would be the beginning gravity. And then you give it some time. I watch the airlock to see when it stops any activity, and then I will take another test. And then I will mark the date and say, measure that gravity. And then the next day I will do it again. I will measure the gravity. And if it stays constant for 3 days, then we have the final gravity, or the beer gravity. And the way you find out what your alcohol content is, or ABV, alcohol by volume, is you take the beginning gravity, subtract the final gravity, and you multiply that by 131.25, and then you get your what the content of the beer, the alcohol content of the beer that you're putting in the bottle. Get it to the proper levels, stick that in there, and then immediately before the yeast get active, I'm going to do the specific gravity measurement, or the beginning gravity measurement, and we'll see where we're at. Hopefully, I like it to be above 1.050. If not, no harm done. If it's not that high, well then you just get Utah beer. And we're looking at, it takes some time for the, you gotta let this foam go down before you can get an accurate reading, but I'm guessing it's around 1.050, which is a good start. And now we wait a couple weeks.
I'm going to try, see what Centennial hops taste like, and it's probably going to be really gross.